Story 1. The Creepy Note. My name's Jasmine, and I was just 19, working the night shift at a gas station last year. And this is the reason why I quit. The words on that note still scare me. It was a regular Sunday night, nothing out of the ordinary. The clock had just struck midnight, and the fog outside made everything look a bit eerie. You see, at that time, the gas station was usually as quiet as a library, with hardly any customers around. I was keeping myself occupied by scrolling through TikTok on my phone, trying to stay awake. Then, out of nowhere, the door creaks open. In walks this guy. He looked normal enough, but there was something about his eyes that gave me the chills. He wandered around the store, glanced at some chips, but didn't buy a thing. Then, he saunters up to the counter, and that's when things start feeling weird. He asks if he can use the bathroom. Now, normally, that wouldn't be a big deal, but there's just something about him that's off. I tell him it's over to the left, and he heads that way. I go back to my phone, figuring it's just another late-night pit stop. But time starts ticking, and this guy isn't coming out. 10 minutes pass, and I'm starting to get uneasy. I mean, what's he doing in there? I call out, "Is everything okay?" No answer. My heart's racing, and I head over to the bathroom to check on him. The wind's howling outside, and all I can think is, this night's taking a turn. I call out again, but still no response. Back at the counter, I'm not sure what to do. Then, there's this noise outside, like a thud. And right after that, footsteps. Now I'm freaked out. But I tell myself, it's just some animal or the wind. But the minutes keep dragging on, and this guy's still in the bathroom. I'm torn between worrying about his safety and fearing for mine. I'm almost ready to grab the bathroom key and open up the door. But when I turn around to grab the key, his face is right there in the small window. I scream, and he's just standing there, grinning that awful grin. Those eerie eyes fixed on me. I drop down behind the counter and hit the button to lock all the doors. My heart's pounding so hard I can barely breathe. I dial 911, my voice shaking as I explain what's happening. But then I hear it, the bathroom door unlocking and creaking open. My whole body goes cold, and I'm cowering, scared out of my wits. I hear footsteps getting closer, and I'm doing everything I can to hold back the tears. But when it sounds like the man is right next to the counter, there's a knock on the door, and the man's footsteps stop. I can't believe my luck. Another customer came to my rescue, unknowingly scaring off whatever nightmare is after me. I am too afraid to move, but after about 5 minutes, the dispatcher tells me the police are here and that I can unlock the doors. I do it as fast as I can, the relief washing over me. The police search the place, every nook and cranny, but they don't find anything. The man must have used the bathroom window to go in and out. When the police checked the bathroom again, they found a small note on the floor saying, "See you soon." I have no idea what this man was planning, but it felt like someone dropped a stone in my stomach. The police offer to give me a ride home, and I don't hesitate. I'm done with that place. They promise to do their best to find the guy, but deep down, I know there's only so much they can do. The next day, I quit that job. I never set foot in that gas station again. And as for the man, well, he vanished into thin air. The whole thing left me with a gut feeling that I'll never shake. A constant reminder that sometimes reality can be scarier than any ghost story.
Story 2. Missing for 6 months. For the past 2 years, I've been working the night shift at a gas station. Over time, I've experienced my fair share of odd occurrences, but nothing could have prepared me for what unfolded during one chilling night. It was around 2 a.m. when things took a disturbing turn that I could never have anticipated. As I manned the station, an air of familiarity surrounded me. The humming of the fluorescent lights, the faint hum of the refrigerator, and the occasional rumble of a passing vehicle were the usual sounds that accompanied my late-night shift. I had become accustomed to the quiet solitude of these nighttime hours, even though they sometimes brought eerie feelings. But this particular night was different. 2 individuals entered the store, a man and a woman. The moment they walked in, I was hit by the unmistakable scent of alcohol that clung to them. It was as if the alcohol had seeped into their very being, and it was impossible to ignore. They made a beeline for the alcohol section, where the shelves were stocked with various spirits and beers. Observing them from behind the counter, something struck me as odd. The woman appeared agitated and uneasy, her face marked by anxiety. On the other hand, the man exuded an unnatural calmness that set off alarm bells in my mind. I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off about this situation. Growing up in a household marked by my father's abusive behavior toward my mother, I learned to recognize the signs of distress in a woman's behavior, and the woman before me was displaying those signs all too clearly. Her eyes darted around the store, avoiding eye contact at all costs. It was as if she was trapped, desperate to get away from something or someone. I continued to watch them as they browsed the shelves, my concern deepening. Suddenly I heard her voice. The woman was saying that she needed to use the bathroom. It was a simple request, but what happened next sent shivers down my spine. The man's demeanor shifted dramatically. From his previously eerie calmness, he now became frantic, almost panicked. His voice grew loud as he vehemently denied her request, his words carrying a sense of urgency that was impossible to ignore. I was torn. Part of me wanted to intervene, to step in and to offer help to the distressed woman. But another part of me hesitated, worried about escalating the situation and putting her in more danger. As they approached the counter, the man's composure returned, and he asked for a pack of cigarettes. I did my best to mask my concern, treating him as any other customer, even though I knew something was very wrong. Finally, they left the store, and a heavy feeling of relief washed over me. My instincts told me that I needed to do something, that this situation was far from normal. I reached for the phone and dialed the police, my voice steady as I described the 2 individuals and their direction of travel. Around 15 minutes later, a police officer arrived at the gas station. He listened carefully as I recounted the events of the night, from the couple's entrance to their odd behavior to the escalating tension. He assured me that they were taking the situation seriously and that they had a car tailing the man's vehicle. His presence brought a sense of reassurance, even though the unease still lingered. After our conversation, the officer left, and I continued to work through the rest of my shift. As dawn broke and the sun began to rise, I felt a mixture of exhaustion and relief. I was eager to head home and finally get some rest. The following day, I turned on the news, hoping for some closure to the unsettling events of the previous night.
Report suspicious activities.
What I saw froze me in my tracks. The man's face was on the screen, a mugshot confirming that he had been apprehended. But it was the backdrop of the image that struck me with a renewed sense of horror. The woman, the one I had seen with him, had been missing for 6 long months. The news report revealed that she was from another state, and the pieces of the puzzle started to come together. The man had been arrested, but the true horror of the situation lay in the details that unfolded. The woman had suffered through unimaginable cruelty and evil. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks, and I couldn't shake the feeling of profound sadness for what she must have endured. As the news report continued, I felt a mix of emotions: relief that she had been found alive, anger at the man responsible for her suffering, and a lingering sense of unease at how close I had been to a deeply disturbing situation. Reflecting on that night, I couldn't help but be grateful that I had followed my instincts and taken action. The woman's desperate situation could have easily gone unnoticed, but the events of that night had been a wake-up call. Life can take unexpected turns, and sometimes being vigilant and compassionate can make all the difference.
Story 3. The Gunshots. Working the night shift at a gas station can make you feel pretty alone and uneasy. Let me tell you about one night that I still remember clearly. It was so dark outside that even the moon seemed to be hiding. The quiet of the night made me feel like I was the only one in the world. I was just trying to keep busy, passing the time until my shift ended without anything strange happening. The hours felt long, and the only things around were the bright lights above me. I cleaned the counters, filled the shelves, and checked the security cameras. Anything to keep my mind off the weird feeling creeping in. But then, out of nowhere, something unexpected happened. Around midnight, 2 people walked into the gas station. They looked messy and moved around in a wobbly way. Just seeing them made me feel nervous. They didn't seem okay. It was pretty clear that these 2 weren't in a normal state. They acted like they had drunk too much alcohol or taken something strong. Their walking was wavy, and their words were hard to understand. They went to the area with sodas, and that's when my heart started to race. Their voices got louder and louder, and it felt like the tension was building up. I couldn't help but listen to their talk quietly. It sounded like they were arguing about something. I started feeling anxious because it was clear that things were getting out of control. They seemed like they might do something unpredictable any second. I knew I had to be careful, but I couldn't shake off the feeling that something bad was going to happen. It was like a storm was coming, and you could feel the air getting heavy. I felt like I was waiting for something bad to happen, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. All of a sudden, one of the guys stopped arguing and came up to the counter where I was standing. My heart raced even faster as he got closer. He looked at me with intense red eyes. Even though I was scared inside, I tried my best to stay calm as he asked for cigarettes. The other guy disappeared, and then everything got quiet. It felt like the whole place was holding its breath. Just as I was about to give the guy the cigarettes, the other guy started running toward us. It was like all the tension in the air exploded at once. Time seemed to slow down as things got really chaotic. There were loud noises and shouting, and things crashing to the ground. As things went on, it became harder to make sense of what was happening. There were loud bangs, like something hitting hard, and they echoed through the store. I heard about 5 or 6 bangs, and it felt like they were hitting me in the chest. It was a scary sound, and it made me feel really small. The next thing I knew, I was waking up in an ambulance. My head hurt so much, and I was really confused. The lights were bright, and I could hear voices, but it took me a while to understand what was going on. Slowly, I started to understand what had happened. I had been hit with 1 bullet in my chest and passed out. The guy who wanted cigarettes had been hurt really badly. Bullets had hit him, and he didn't make it. It was hard to believe something like that could happen so suddenly. I can't forget that night. It's a memory that stuck with me, and I think about it a lot. It reminds me that danger can come out of nowhere and change everything. I wish I could have done something to stop it, but I can't change what happened. Thinking back, I hope others can learn from my story. I hope they're careful in their own lives and avoid getting into dangerous situations. Life is fragile, and we need to make good choices to stay safe.
Story 4. Can I borrow your phone? It was a cold autumn night when I found myself working alone at the gas station. The clock struck midnight, and the only sounds that could be heard in the empty streets were the occasional gusts of wind. The fluorescent lights in the small store were flickering and casting eerie shadows on the worn-out linoleum floor. The constant hum of the refrigerators filled the air. I tried to keep myself occupied by flipping through a magazine and occasionally looking out the window as the minutes passed by. I felt very lonely due to the lack of company, and the repetitive nature of working the night shift was starting to have a negative impact on me. However, I had no idea that this ordinary night would soon become the most terrifying experience of my life. At around 3 a.m., a car arrived at one of the gas pumps. The headlights lit up the area, showing a man sitting in the driver's seat. There was something about his appearance that gave me chills. He had an unkempt beard and wore a worn-out jacket that seemed odd on this chilly night. His eyes appeared tired and red, and his face showed signs of aging, as if he had experienced a lot of difficulties in life. I put on a smile and went outside to welcome him, but I couldn't shake off a strange feeling of discomfort. He stared at me intensely, his gaze lingering for a moment longer than necessary. I cleared my throat to ease the tension. "Good evening, sir. How may I help you tonight?" I asked, trying to appear calm. The man's voice was rough and carried a sense of urgency. "I require assistance. My vehicle has broken down a short distance away, and I do not possess a phone. Would it be possible for you to lend me yours?" Despite my initial hesitation, my compassion for someone in need compelled me to hand him my phone. He promptly dialed a number. As he put the phone to his ear, I couldn't help but notice a wicked smile appear on his face. He abruptly ended the call and handed the phone back to me, his expression now harsh and threatening. "Thank you for your help. You've been very kind." I felt a shiver go down my back as he turned and left, vanishing into the darkness. I couldn't get rid of the feeling that something was very wrong. I checked my phone and saw that he hadn't made a call at all. The screen showed only a sequence of random numbers and symbols, giving the impression that someone had tampered with it. I felt scared when I realized that I had fallen into a trap. Without wasting any time, I went back inside and locked the doors. I brushed it off as just being some weirdo. The gas station seemed to have regained its usual calm after the man's unsettling visit, and I continued my shifts with a bit less apprehension. However, 30 minutes later, as I was ready to leave, I heard a series of faint noises coming from outside. At first, I dismissed it as just the wind or a passing car. But the sounds continued, growing louder and more distinct. It sounded like footsteps, slow and deliberate. My heart began to race, and I felt a wave of fear wash over me. I tiptoed toward the window and cautiously peeked outside. My breath caught in my throat as I saw a shadow moving near the gas pumps. My mind raced, and I realized that those footsteps weren't coming from a passing stranger. They were coming from the man. Panic gripped me as I realized he was back and seemingly lurking around the gas station. The security measures we had put in place suddenly seemed inadequate. Unsure of what to do, I considered calling the police, but a part of me hesitated. What if I was just being paranoid? What if it was all just a coincidence? As the minutes ticked by, the footsteps grew fainter and eventually faded away. I stayed by the window, watching and waiting, my mind swirling with uncertainty. Should I lock up and leave? Should I stay and finish my shift as usual? The decision felt impossible to make, and I was left grappling with my fear and confusion. After deciding to call the police for my own safety, I anxiously waited for their arrival. Finally, after 10 minutes, they showed up. I quickly unlocked the doors and they entered the gas station. I proceeded to explain everything that had occurred that night. The police then conducted a thorough search of the area, and thankfully, I had made the right decision to call them. They discovered the man's car parked just 3 minutes away in the woods. Upon searching the vehicle, they found a rope and a knife. I can't help but dwell on the thought of what might have happened if I hadn't called the police and simply walked home. Thanks for watching the Haunted Sketchbook. Be sure to check out any of the videos on screen right now if you're planning on not sleeping tonight.